Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your bonus episode, 9 Lives, Whispers of Wonder. I hope you enjoyed our little Brothers Grimm episode. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a diversion, and I'm going to read you a Norse folk tale, one that I really like. It's a very sweet one. It's called The Fir Tree, and in this tale, an anxious fir tree can't appreciate the moment because he's so eager for growth and greater things. Sometimes we don't know what we've got until it's gone. And this story reminds us of the importance of being grateful for the present. The story was first published in 1844 by Hans Christian Andersen. Once upon a time, in a forest far, far away, there stood a fir tree anxious to grow up. It basked in the warm sunshine and was surrounded by fresh air, but the fir tree simply did not care for any of it. It despised being so little. It certainly did not enjoy it when children would pass by and comment on its size as they picked berries from nearby bushes to fill their buckets. Oh, look at that tree. Isn't it so nice and small? It's the baby of the woods. How petite and quaint that tree is. The fir tree growled, not that they could hear him, and cried, I hate being little. The next year, even with a long joint of new growth, the fir tree couldn't help but sigh. He was still so little compared to the tall pines around him. All I want is to be a grown-up tree. Then I could see the view from up high and the birds would want to make their home out of my branches. I could even bow back and forth a great distance as the wind blows my way. Oh, there's so much to do when you're all grown up. The following winter, even though he had grown yet another joint of new growth, he was still miserable, especially as a hare would often come hopping along and jump past the lower branches of the fir tree as if he were nothing. It was only 2 winters later, when he had grown to a medium-sized tree, that the hare could no longer jump over the branches of the tree, but had to hop around it. The fir tree was satisfied with the development. See, this is what happens when you grow. You get taller, and isn't that the most wonderful thing in the world? But in autumn of next year, the fir tree saw how woodcutters came through the forest and cut down the largest of trees. He watched in horror as the trees crashed to the ground with their limbs lopped off. He trembled as he watched the naked trunks get loaded into carts and driven away from the forest. He did not understand where they were going, and he did not find out until springtime, when the swallows and storks gave him company. Do you know where the older trees have gone? He asked them. Oh, yes. Many of them have travelled across the seas as tall, stately masts on ships, the stork said. Some have gone as far as Egypt. At least I think those trees are the ones you speak of, for they smelled just like you, like fir. The fir tree was no longer upset about the disappearance of his friends. Instead, he was excited. When he grew up, he too could travel on the seas and see the world. Oh, I wish I were old now. Life is short, my friend, said the sun, who had overheard the conversation. Do not wish your life away, but take pride in your life now. The fir tree ignored the sun. What did she know about life down here on earth? When Christmas came, just like in the spring, many of the trees were cut down and taken away. The fir tree hoped he would be one of them, but alas, he was left behind. I don't understand. Why aren't they coming for me? I am now much bigger than they are, and why are their branches not cut off like my elders? He asked. We can answer that, a sparrow chirped. They're allowed to keep their branches, for they are to be decked out in homes. They are not becoming masts on ships, said the fir tree. No, not at all. You wouldn't believe what I've seen through house windows. They are planted in the middle of the warm room where golden and silver apples decorate their branches, and boxes are hidden underneath them. Oh, and there are candles everywhere, so many candles. The fir tree listened in awe. Such lucky trees, that's even better than travelling the seas as a mast. I wish I could be planted in a home just like them. Careful what you wish for, the wind whispered to the tree. Do not waste your youth wishing when you could enjoy what is already out there in the open right now. But the tree did not listen to the wind. Instead, he dreamed of the day where he would be taken away from the forest. He grew and grew until his branches turned a dark evergreen colour that people were unable to ignore come the following winter. Soon enough, the small men who had taken away the smaller trees came for him. Finally, the tree sighed in relief, but just as quickly as the relief had appeared, it faded. The tree felt faint with pain, and sadness filled him at the idea of leaving the only home he had known for so many years. Even with many of his comrades having long since left, He was upset that he would be leaving the grounds he'd grown up in, and the other trees, plants, and animals he'd come to know. The tree was quite miserable until he was unloaded into a yard where a young lad spotted him and said, "Oh, that's a splendid tree. Can I have that one, father?" "Yes, you are right," his father replied. "It is quite magnificent." The fir tree smiled, and then 2 servants came to transport him. Eventually, he was carried inside a drawing room where he was planted in a large pot that was wrapped in a green cloth. Around him, there were portraits hung up on the walls and sofas covered in fuzzy blankets. Across from him, there were tables strewn with all kinds of items, picture books, toys, and food. He could not have been happier if he tried. The servants hung cut-out coloured paper and silver apples from his branches, while candles and walnuts were tied to his twigs. At the very top of the tree, they placed a large golden star that made the fir tree so beautiful he felt giddy. "Oh, this tree will shine so brightly tonight," the servants exclaimed. "I cannot wait," the tree thought to himself. "I wonder what I will look like when all the candles are lit. Will the other trees try to peer through the windows and see me? And what will happen after tonight? Will I take root in this room for the rest of the year?" There was so much the tree did not know, but he had nobody to ask. The humans could not hear him like the animals and the sun and the wind could. When the candles were lit, the tree was surprised at the heat. He quivered, accidentally setting one of his own twigs ablaze. "Oh no," he cried out in surprise, while the young servant put the fire out quickly. After that, the tree was afraid to move again. What if he had dropped one of the ornaments? How disappointed he would be. Later, a group of children stormed the room. They all looked up at the tree in admiration, and the tree felt so proud at their reaction. But only moments later, they forgot all about him as they grabbed for the presents that lay underneath his branches. "Is that it? Will they pay me no more attention?" he asked. And it seemed they wouldn't. They were wholly occupied by their presents and the songs that played throughout the house. They danced and played, not once looking at the tree. The tree sighed with disappointment. "Tell us a story," the children asked of their father. The man sat down in his chair with the children at his feet and told them the story of brother Jacob. As the children listened, the fir tree stood very still and wondered what tomorrow would bring. Perhaps they would decorate him again, perhaps with fruits and the toys the children had received, rather than those already hanging on his branches today. The tree dreamed of tomorrow, and when the maid came in the following morning with the duster, he smiled. "Ah, yes, they have come to renew my beauty," he thought to himself. But they did not dust him. Instead, they dragged him upstairs and left him in a dark corner of the attic where no sunlight ever filtered through. "Why am I here? How am I to bring the family joy if I am hidden away?" The tree leaned against the wall, waiting to be remembered. Sometimes people would come upstairs, but only to leave boxes in the corner with him. Not once did they come to say hello or take care of him. The fir tree thought that perhaps he had not been forgotten, but simply put in the attic until the earth outside would thaw enough for them to replant him outside in the garden. "They are doing this for my own good. They wouldn't want me to freeze after all. Oh, they're such lovely people in this family, though I do wish it wasn't so lonely or dark in here." Just then, 2 mice crept across the floor towards the fir tree. "Gosh, it's cold in here, isn't it?" squeaked one mouse. "It certainly is," the other mouse said, before they both rustled in and out of the branches. "Other than the cold, it's nice here, isn't it, old fir tree?" "Who are you calling old?" the fir tree asked. "I will have you know that there are many older trees than me." "Really? Tell us everything," squeaked the mouse. "Yes, tell us where you've been, old fir tree. Where have you been?" "I come from the forest where the birds sing and the sun shines brightly upon you," he told the mice, and began to recount his youthful days in the forest. He even told them about the hare that used to annoy him when he was little, which now he felt strangely nostalgic about. When he was done, the mice looked up at him with giant smiles. "You must have been so happy in the forest." "Compared to here, I guess so, yes," the fir tree said with a slight sadness. "Where else have you been?" a mouse asked. "Well, I've been a Christmas tree downstairs. You should have seen how they decked me out with candles and silver apples." The fir tree told the mice all about the children and their toys. He told them about the warmth of the candles and the smells of the food that were prepared. "Oh, what a wonderful life you have lived," the mice said. "I am still living. I have simply stopped growing for the moment. That's all," said the fir tree. The next night, the 2 mice brought along 4 others and some rats too, who all came to hear what the tree had to say. Again, the tree recalled its useful days and its time downstairs. Have you got any more stories to tell? The mice asked him. The tree thought about it. He had no personal stories to tell, but he could remember the story he heard his father tell the children on Christmas Eve. I could tell you the story of Brother Jacob, he offered. Yes, please. The mice and rats called out in unison. So the fir tree told them all of the story of Brother Jacob, to the best of his recollection. When he finished, one of the mice asked, Is that the only story you know? That is indeed, he answered. Well then, we are off. And we won't come back, for we want new stories, one of the rats said, and the mice followed not long after. When they had all left, the tree sighed. It was nice to have company, however long it lasted. Finally, spring came, and the servants were ready to move the tree out of the attic and into the daylight. Now my life will start again, said the tree to himself. I knew they hadn't forgotten about me. Hopefully they will take me somewhere outdoors. He was dragged through the doors and out into the garden where flowers were blooming and trees were blossoming. How wonderful the sun and wind feel out here. I cannot wait to live again, the fir tree rejoiced, trying to stretch out his branches. But as he did, he realized in the light of day that they were all withered and brown. Then he was tossed into the corner of a garden among the weeds and nettles. Oh, look, said the children who were not far away from him. It's our old Christmas tree. It's even got the star on top. Daddy must have forgotten to remove it. The young boy trampled over the fir tree, the brittle branches cracking underneath his feet until he could pluck the star off it. The tree yelped in disappointment. They didn't care for me at all. They only made me look gorgeous to suit their party. The tree cried to himself, Oh, how I wish I hadn't grown up. If I were still young, I would still be in the forest with the sun and the wind and the other trees and the animals, those who actually appreciated me. Why did I take it all for granted? Why did I not listen to my wise elders and hold on to my youth while I could? Before the fir tree could ruminate further over his poor decisions, the servant came with an axe. Then the fir tree was chopped up, not to be made into a mast like some of his old friends, but to be heaped into a pile for the bonfire. As the tree was set ablaze and turned into smoke, he could not help but remember his bright summer days and starlit nights in the forest. If he could, he would go back and tell his younger self to stop wishing his life away, when he could simply have lived in the present. So there we are, a little Christmas tale for you. I hope from that you can take the lesson of happiness is in the present moment. It is not at the destination. It is not at your next goal. It doesn't belong in the future. It belongs to you now. So look around you and try to enjoy the environment that you're in. Take in all of the lovely moments this Christmas and just try to remain where you are without constantly trying to press yourself to be a bigger, more beautiful fir tree. All right, guys, Merry Christmas, lots of love, and until next week.